Victoria Ashford stood on the front steps of the estate, white dress catching the June breeze, her hand resting in Carter Mansfield's palm like it belonged there. She smiled when she saw Devon's pickup truck pull out of the circular driveway, the same truck she'd asked him to park behind the garage for the past 6 months because it embarrassed her in front of guests. "He's a good man," she said, her voice carrying just enough volume for Devon to hear through his open window. "But he's just a mechanic. I need someone who understands what I deserve." Carter leaned down, kissed her temple. Diane Ashford emerged from the house behind them, arms crossed, satisfaction settling across her features like she'd finally corrected a mistake that had taken 5 years too long to fix. What none of them knew, Devon Cross owned $47 million in assets. Real estate portfolios across 3 states, equity positions in 2 aviation companies, a private jet worth $8.5 million currently parked at Hanscom Field 40 minutes north. The pickup truck wasn't poverty, it was preference, and in 48 hours that jet would land on the Ashford family lawn, and Victoria would understand exactly what she'd thrown away. But to understand how we got here, you need to go back to where it started. 7 years earlier, Devon was 31, running a 2-bay garage in Medford, Massachusetts. He fixed diesel engines, restored classic cars, worked 70-hour weeks because he loved the feel of metal under his hands and the smell of motor oil and the satisfaction of making broken things run again. Customers knew him as the best mechanic in the state. What they didn't know was that he'd been investing since he was 20. Buying distressed properties during the 2008 crash, flipping them, reinvesting. By 31, his portfolio had cracked 7 figures. He still showed up to work in Carhartt jackets with grease under his fingernails because that was who he was, not what the bank account said. Victoria Ashford was 28, working in marketing for her family's luxury goods company. Ashford and Lane specialized in handbags and scarves that cost more than most people's monthly rent, sold to women who measured their worth in brand names. Victoria hated the pressure. Her mother Diane had built the company from the ground up and expected Victoria to marry someone who fit the image: old money, right schools, connections that mattered. Victoria felt like she was suffocating in cashmere. They met at the New England Classic Auto Show. Devon had brought a 1967 Mustang Fastback he'd spent 8 months restoring. Original ivy green paint, 390 V8 engine he'd rebuilt by hand. Victoria wasn't there for the cars. She was there because a client wanted photos for a lifestyle campaign, something about American heritage and timeless craftsmanship. She stopped at Devon's display because the Mustang was the most beautiful thing in the building. Original engine? Her eyes moved across the chrome valve covers. Rebuilt. Took me 8 months. He didn't look up from polishing the side mirror. Had to source parts from 3 different states. Original carb was shot, so I found a Holly that matched the specs. You did this yourself? Every bolt? She looked at him then, really looked. Tall, lean build, dark skin that caught the overhead lights, hands that moved with the kind of precision that came from 10,000 hours of practice. He wore a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up and jeans that had seen actual work. No pretense, no performance. Just a man who loved what he did. "Why?" she asked. He finally looked up. "Why what? Why spend 8 months on a car?" He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that came from someplace genuine. Because when you make something with your hands, you know it's real. No shortcuts, no lies. Just you and the work. She felt something shift in her chest, a crack in the armor she'd been wearing since she was old enough to understand that her mother's world came with rules she didn't write. They talked for an hour. He told her about rebuilding engines, about the satisfaction of turning a seized motor into something that purred. She told him about feeling trapped in a company that sold illusions to people who thought $5,000 handbags would fill the empty spaces in their lives. He laughed at that, not cruel, just honest. Sounds like we both work with broken things, he said. I just get to fix mine. She asked for his number. He gave it to her. 3 days later, they had coffee at a diner in Cambridge, where the booths had duct tape on the vinyl and the waitress called everyone honey. Victoria had never felt more at home. For the first 3 years, it was good, better than good. They fit. Devon worked on engines during the day and came home to Victoria sketching marketing concepts at the kitchen table. She helped him build a website for the garage, taught him how to photograph the restorations for social media. He listened when she complained about her mother's constant pressure to marry up, told her she was worth more than whatever Diane Ashford thought status could buy. They got married in year 2. Small ceremony, justice of the peace, reception at a restaurant in the North End where the pasta was homemade and the wine came in carafes. Diane didn't come. She sent a card that read, "I hope you know what you're doing," with no signature. Victoria cried in the bathroom and Devon held her until she stopped, his hands smelling like the lavender soap he'd used to scrub off the day's grease. "You don't need her approval," he said quietly. "You never did." By year 3, they bought the Ashford estate together. It was Victoria's childhood home. Diane had moved to a penthouse in Back Bay after Victoria's father died, and the house sat empty for 2 years. Victoria wanted it back, wanted to prove she could build something separate from her mother's shadow. The asking price was $700,000. Devon put down $420,000 in cash, his share of the down payment. Victoria contributed $80,000 from savings. The mortgage went in both names. He never told her where the $420,000 came from. She never asked. She assumed he'd saved, maybe taken a loan, maybe sold some equipment. He let her assume. His grandfather, Samuel Cross, had taught him young, if you want to know who really loves you, never let them see the money first. The people who stay when they think you have nothing, those are the ones worth keeping. The garage kept growing. Year 3 brought in $480,000 in revenue. Devon hired 2 mechanics, expanded to 4 bays, started taking on fleet contracts for vintage car collectors who paid premium rates for his precision work. Victoria freelanced for boutique brands, pulled in $85,000 that year doing campaigns for companies that wanted the Ashford name without hiring Diane directly. They had a rhythm. He'd come home at 7, hands scrubbed but still smelling faintly of solvent, and she'd have dinner waiting. Nothing fancy, just pasta or chicken or takeout from the Thai place down the street. They'd eat on the couch, her feet in his lap, talking about their days. Sometimes he'd sketch out engine modifications on napkins while she critiqued his terrible handwriting. Sometimes she'd show him mood boards for campaigns and he'd ask questions that made her think differently about color and composition. One night, 2 in the morning, they were both awake. Devon was under a 1972 Bronco in the garage, replacing a transmission mount. Victoria came down in one of his old t-shirts, holding 2 beers, and slid under the car next to him. "Thought you might want company." He took the beer, drank, set it aside. "Pass me that torque wrench." She handed it to him. They worked in comfortable silence for 20 minutes, his hands on the bolts, hers holding the flashlight steady. "I've never been this happy," she said suddenly. He paused mid-turn, looked over at her. Grease streaked across her cheek from where she'd pushed hair out of her face. "Yeah? Yeah," she smiled. "I didn't know it could be this easy." "It's not easy." He went back to the bolt. "We just make it look that way." She kissed him then, tasted beer and motor oil and something that felt like home. But good things crack if you don't tend them. Year 4 started with pressure. Diane called Victoria in January, said the company needed someone to run a new division, luxury accessories for younger demographics. Big salary, corner office, her name on business cards that mattered. Victoria hesitated. She liked freelancing, liked the freedom, liked coming home at 5 instead of 8, but the money was significant. And somewhere deep down she wanted her mother to see her as competent, Wanted to prove she could succeed in Diane's world without surrendering to it. She took the job. The first crack appeared in March. Diane was hosting a charity gala at the Four Seasons, black tie, 500 a plate, the kind of event where people measured their worth in how many times they got photographed. Victoria bought Devon a suit, $400 off the rack from Nordstrom, charcoal gray that fit him well enough. He wore it because she asked. They arrived at 7. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne and women in dresses that cost more than Devon's truck. Victoria introduced him to colleagues, to clients, to people whose names came with suffixes that indicated old money and older expectations. Devon shook hands, made polite conversation, didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. Later in the bathroom hallway, Victoria pulled him aside. Her voice was low, tense. "Why didn't you wear the Armani I showed you?" "I don't own an Armani. I sent you the link. It was $2,000. He blinked. "You want me to spend $2,000 on a suit I'll wear twice?" "It's not about the suit, it's about how we look." Something cold settled in his chest. "I look fine. You look fine for Medford. This isn't Medford." She adjusted his tie, her hands quick and frustrated. "Can you just try? For me?" He didn't answer. She walked back into the ballroom and he followed, the words sitting in his throat like stones. The second crack came in September. Diane hosted a dinner party at her penthouse, intimate gathering, just 8 people, Victoria and Devon, 2 of Diane's colleagues from the board, and Carter Mansfield, son of the Mansfield family whose wealth came from shipping and real estate and investments that dated back to the Gilded Age. Carter was 40, Harvard MBA, unmarried, handsome in the way that came from good genes and better tailors. He wore a navy suit that probably cost $5,000 and a watch that cost more than Devon's truck and mortgage combined. Diane introduced him to Victoria with the kind of enthusiasm she'd never used for Devon. "Carter just closed a deal with a luxury hotel chain in the Bahamas, 15 properties. He's expanding the family portfolio." Carter smiled, extended his hand. "Victoria, your mother's told me so much about your work. I'd love to hear about your new division." They talked for an hour. Devon sat across the table cutting his steak, listening to Carter explain market strategies and brand positioning and opportunities for collaboration. Victoria's eyes lit up when Carter mentioned potentially partnering Ashford and Lane with his hotel chain. Custom amenity lines, exclusive distribution, profit margins that made her current salary look modest. Diane watched them talk, and her smile was the smile of someone who'd just found the missing piece to a puzzle she'd been assembling for years. Devon drove them home in silence. Victoria scrolled through her phone, texting someone, probably Carter, probably about the partnership idea. "He seems nice," Devon offered. "He's brilliant." She didn't look up. "Did you hear the numbers he was throwing around? We could triple our revenue in 2 years. "We?" "The company." He turned onto their street. "What about us?" She finally looked up. "What about us? Do I exist in this plan?" Her face shifted, confusion, then irritation. "Why are you being difficult?" "I'm not. I'm asking if I'm part of your future or just the guy who drove you there." She put her phone down. "You're being dramatic." He pulled into the driveway, put the truck in park, turned off the engine. The silence was heavy. "I love you," he said quietly, "but I don't think you see me anymore. You see what I'm not." "That's not fair, isn't it?" He looked at her. "When was the last time you asked about the garage? When was the last time you cared about anything I built?" She opened her mouth, closed it. No answer came. He got out of the truck, went inside, went straight to the garage. She didn't follow. The third crack was public, November. Ashford and Lane held an all-hands meeting at a hotel in downtown Boston. 200 employees, presentations about quarterly earnings, strategic vision for the next fiscal year. Diane gave the keynote. Victoria introduced the new accessories division. Devon came because Victoria asked him to, said it would mean something to have him there. He sat in the back row. Victoria stood on stage in a burgundy dress and heels that made her 3 inches taller, confident and articulate, and everything her mother had trained her to be. She talked about market research, about demographic shifts, about positioning Ashford and Lane as the luxury brand for millennial professionals who valued heritage and craftsmanship. During the reception afterward, people mingled. Devon stood near the coffee station holding a cup he wasn't drinking. A woman approached, mid-30s, blonde, name tag that read Marketing Associate. "Are you with the company?" "No, I'm Victoria's husband." "Oh," she brightened. "What do you do?" "I'm a mechanic." Her smile froze for half a second, the kind of freeze that comes when someone recalibrates their expectations downward. "That's nice. Must be steady work." "It is," she excused herself. 30 seconds later, she was talking to someone else, and her laugh was louder, brighter, relieved. Victoria didn't introduce him to her colleagues. She moved through the room with Carter at her side. He'd flown in from New York for the meeting, said he wanted to see the division launch in person. They talked to board members, to investors, to people whose approval mattered. Devon watched from the back, holding his coffee, feeling like furniture that didn't match the decor. On the drive home, Victoria was animated. "Did you see the response? Carter thinks we could launch in Q2 if we fast-track production. Diane's already talking about bringing him on as an advisor." Devon stared at the road. "You didn't introduce me to anyone." "What?" "At the reception. You walked past me 4 times, didn't say a word." She was quiet for a beat. "I was networking." "You were embarrassed." "I was working." "You introduced Carter to everyone, board members, investors, the VP of operations. Carter's a potential partner. And I'm what, the guy you keep in the garage?" Her jaw tightened. "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Make everything about you." Her voice was sharp now. "I was trying to build something tonight. I was trying to prove I could lead this division. I don't need you turning it into some insecurity contest." He pulled into the driveway, killed the engine. "I'm not insecure, I'm invisible." She got out of the car, slammed the door, went inside. He sat in the truck for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the house they'd bought together, wondering when it stopped feeling like theirs. December brought Carter back. He was in Boston for business, and Diane invited him to Christmas dinner. Victoria didn't ask Devon if he minded, she just told him Carter would be there. Dinner was at the penthouse. Diane had hired a chef. 4 courses, wine pairings, table settings that looked like a magazine spread. Carter brought a bottle of 1995 Chateau Margaux that probably cost more than Devon made in a week. He presented it to Diane like he was offering tribute to royalty. "For the woman who built an empire." Diane's smile could have melted steel. They sat down, Diane at the head of the table, Victoria to her right, Carter to her left, Devon at the far end, across from an empty chair that might as well have had his name on it. Carter talked about his hotel expansion. 15 properties in the Caribbean, 3 in Europe, 2 in Asia. He was opening a flagship in Dubai in 18 months. He asked Victoria's opinion on branding strategies, on whether Ashford and Lane could create a signature amenity line for his hotels, soaps, lotions, towels with embroidered logos. Victoria's eyes lit up. She sketched ideas on her napkin, talked about exclusivity and positioning and partnerships that could redefine both brands. Diane watched them like she was watching a play she'd written herself. Devon cut his lamb, chewed, said nothing. "Devon." Carter turned to him, polite, curious. "Victoria mentioned you work on cars. That must be rewarding." "It is. Do you specialize in anything particular?" "Classics, restorations, diesel engines." "Fascinating." Carter's tone suggested it was anything but. "I've always admired people who work with their hands. There's something honest about it." Diane's fork paused mid-air. Victoria looked down at her plate. "Honest," Devon repeated. "Well, yes. No pretense. You fix something, it works or it doesn't." Carter sipped his wine. "Must be simple." The word hung in the air like smoke. Devon set his fork down carefully. It's not simple. It's precise. You miss one measurement, one torque spec, one timing mark, the whole thing fails. But yeah, when I'm done, I know if I got it right. No room for bullshit. Carter's smile tightened. Diane cleared her throat. Victoria's hand went to her wine glass, gripped it hard enough her knuckles went white. Devon? Her voice was quiet, warning. He stood. Excuse me, I'm going to get some air. He walked out to the balcony, stood in the December cold, watched the city lights spread across the harbor. Behind him, through the glass, he could hear Carter laughing. Victoria joined in. Diane said something he couldn't make out, but the tone was warm, approving. He stayed outside for 15 minutes. When he came back, they were discussing vacation homes. Carter owned a place in St. Bart's. He invited Victoria and Diane to visit in February. Devon wasn't included in the invitation. The drive home was silent. Victoria stared out the window. Devon focused on the road. You embarrassed me, she said finally. I embarrassed you? Calling Carter out like that, making everything awkward. He called my work simple. He was being polite. He was being condescending, and you let him. She turned to face him. What was I supposed to do? Defend me. Say something. Anything. You're being sensitive. He laughed. Dry. Hollow. Right. I'm sensitive. Not the guy who spent 2,000 words explaining how important his hotel chain is. Carter's accomplished. He's built something. And I haven't? She didn't answer fast enough. He pulled over. They were 2 blocks from the house. He put the truck in park, turned to her. Say it. Say what? That you think I'm not good enough, that you're ashamed of what I do, that you wish I was more like Carter. Her eyes were bright, hard. I didn't say that. You don't have to. She looked away. I just want more. More what? More everything. Her voice cracked. I want to walk into a room and not have to explain who you are. I want people to see us and know we belong together. You want someone who looks good on paper. She didn't deny it. He started the truck, drove the last 2 blocks, parked in the driveway. She got out, went inside. He sat there for a long time, engine off, hands on the wheel, feeling the shape of the ending before it arrived. January came cold and quiet. Victoria spent more time at the office. Carter was back in New York but called her 3 times a week. Business calls, strategy sessions, conversations that ran late into the evening while Devon sat in the garage, rebuilding a transmission for a client who'd driven up from Connecticut. He listened to her laugh through the floor above him, the sound muffled but unmistakable. She stopped asking about his day, stopped touching his hand when they passed in the hallway, stopped smiling when he told jokes that used to make her double over laughing. He didn't push. He wanted to see if she'd come back on her own. She didn't. February. She asked him for money. $8,500, marketing campaign budget shortfall. She needed to cover it personally, didn't want to ask Diane, didn't want to look incompetent. He transferred the money that afternoon. She thanked him via text. May, another request, $22,000. She wanted to open a showroom for the accessories line. Boutique space in Newbury Street, high-end location, proof of concept for investors. He hesitated. She said it was temporary, said she'd pay him back when the division turned profitable. He transferred the money. She kissed his cheek, said he was saving her life. He started keeping records, screenshots of the transfers, dates, amounts, text exchanges. He didn't know why. Instinct, maybe. The same instinct that told you to save receipts, document everything, prepare for audits you hoped would never come. August, $35,000, investment opportunity with Carter. Hotel amenity partnership, needed capital to secure exclusive distribution rights, returns projected at 40% within 2 years. This is it, she said, her hands on his shoulders, eyes bright with something that looked like excitement, but felt like desperation. This is the thing that puts us on the map. Us? The company. My career, everything. He wired the money the next morning. She flew to New York that weekend to finalize the deal with Carter. She didn't invite Devon. Said it was business, said he'd be bored. Total, $65,500, 6 months. 3 requests that became demands that became expectations. He never saw a dollar back. September. He worked 80-hour weeks, took on jobs he normally would have turned down, fleet maintenance for a luxury car dealership, engine rebuilds for collectors who paid premium rates but expected perfection. He slept 4 hours a night, ate standing up in the garage, came home smelling like sweat and metal and exhaustion. Victoria didn't notice. She was busy planning. Carter's partnership was moving forward. Production timelines, distribution strategies, marketing budgets that made Devon's garage revenue look like pocket change. She stayed late at the office 4 nights a week. Came home at 10, 11, sometimes midnight. Picked at leftovers Devon had made, scrolled through her phone, went to bed without asking how his day went. He stopped trying to tell her. October. The breaking point arrived quietly, like most endings do. Devon landed a contract restoration project for a vintage car collector in Vermont. 18 vehicles, 60-day timeline, revenue potential, $180,000, biggest contract the garage had ever seen. He needed to commit full-time, needed Victoria to understand he'd be unavailable for family events, social obligations, anything that pulled him away from the work. He told her over dinner, Chinese takeout, eaten on the couch, her attention half on her laptop. I need 3 months. She looked up. For what? This contract, it's huge, life-changing. But I have to go all in. How all in? 70, 80 hours a week, weekends. I won't be available for dinners, events, anything. Her jaw tightened. Diane's hosting a gala in November. You promised you'd come. I know I can't. You can't or you won't. Victoria, this is $180,000. This puts the garage on the map. And what about me? He blinked. What about you? I need you there. Carter's introducing me to investors. This is important. So is this. She closed her laptop. It's always later with you. Always just give me 3 months or one more project. When does it end? When does what end? When do I become the priority? He stared at her. You've asked me for $65,000 in 6 months. I gave you every cent. How is that not making you the priority? Her face went cold. Are you throwing that in my face? I'm stating a fact. You gave me that money freely. You asked for it. I gave it because I thought we were building something together. Turns out I was funding your exit. She stood. What is that supposed to mean? He stood too. It means you don't see me anymore. You see what I'm not. You see Carter's life and compare it to mine, and I come up short every time. That's not true. Then why haven't you touched me in 3 months? Why do you flinch when I talk about the garage? Why did you tell your mother I couldn't make it to her birthday dinner before you even asked me? She looked away. I'm tired of fighting. We're not fighting, we're just not anything. She turned back, and her eyes were hard. Maybe that's the problem. The air left the room. What do you want, Victoria? She took a breath. I think we should separate. The words landed soft but cut deep. Because I'm not Carter. Because we're not right for each other. We were right for 3 years. We were young. Her voice was quiet now, sad almost. I didn't know what I needed. And now you do? She didn't answer. He walked to the bedroom, started packing. Clothes, toothbrush, the watch his grandfather left him. He didn't take anything Victoria had bought. Didn't need it. Didn't want it. She followed him to the door. Where will you go? The garage. I keep a couch in the office. Devon, don't. He picked up his bag. You made your choice. Own it. He walked out, got in his truck, drove to the garage on the edge of Medford where the rent was cheap and the work was honest and nobody cared what suit you wore or who your mother was or whether you belonged. He lay on the couch in the back office, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the air compressor. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. "I'm sorry it came to this." He didn't reply. Across town in the Ashford estate, Victoria stood in the kitchen with her phone in her hand and Carter's number on the screen. She hesitated for only a moment before she called. He answered on the second ring. "Everything okay?" "It's done," she said quietly. "He's gone." Carter's voice was warm, understanding. "I'm sorry. That must be hard." "It is." She leaned against the counter. "But it's right. Do you want company?" She closed her eyes. "Yes." 20 minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Carter stepped out, suit perfectly pressed despite the hour. He carried a bottle of wine and the kind of confidence that came from never doubting you were exactly where you belonged. Victoria met him at the door. He pulled her into a hug that lasted longer than it should have. Inside, Diane emerged from the guest room where she'd been staying since the separation talk began. She looked at Carter, at Victoria, at the space Devon used to fill. "Finally," Diane said, "you made the right choice, darling." Victoria wanted to believe her, but somewhere in the back of her mind, beneath the relief and the justification and the certainty that she deserved more, a small voice whispered that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. She poured the wine and drowned it out. Morning arrived with the smell of old coffee and transmission fluid. Devon woke on the couch in his office, neck stiff from the cheap cushions, sunlight cutting through the window blinds in harsh lines. His phone showed 7 missed calls from Victoria. He deleted the notifications without listening to the voicemails. The garage opened at 7. By 7:15, his lead mechanic Torres was under a Silverado, and Devon was elbow-deep in the Vermont Collector's first project, a 1969 Camaro SS with a seized engine that needed complete disassembly. He worked in silence, letting the rhythm of the work quiet everything else. Remove the valve covers, inspect the rockers, check for scoring on the cylinder walls. Mechanical problems had mechanical solutions. You followed the diagnostic tree until you found the failure point. Then you fixed it. No ambiguity, no wondering if you'd misread the signs. His phone buzzed. Text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Carter Mansfield. I wanted to reach out personally. Victoria's going through a difficult time. I hope we can all handle this with dignity." Devon stared at the screen for 30 seconds. Then he blocked the number and went back to the Camaro. Noon brought Tobias Reed. He showed up with 2 cups of Dunkin' coffee and a bag of breakfast sandwiches that were 4 hours past breakfast. Toby was 52, had worked as an aerospace engineer for Boeing until he got tired of corporate politics and started consulting for private aviation companies. He'd taught Devon about aircraft ownership structures back in 2015. Helped him set up the LLC that bought the Gulfstream G280. Showed him how to write off operating costs and crew salaries in ways that kept the IRS happy. They'd met at MIT. Devon had taken 2 night classes in business finance while running the garage, and Toby had been the guest lecturer who actually made tax code interesting. "You look like hell." Toby handed him the coffee. "Thanks." "Victoria really pulled the trigger?" Devon nodded, wiped grease off his hands with a shop rag. "She's staying at the house. I'm here." "What about the house? It's in both names, right?" "I put down 420. She put down 80. Toby whistled low. "She know where that 420 came from?" "Never asked." "And you never told her about the rest? The properties, the portfolio?" "Grandpa Sam told me when I was 16. If you want to know who loves you, let them think you're broke. The ones who stay, they're real. The ones who leave were never yours to begin with." Toby unwrapped his sandwich, took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. "Your grandpa was a wise man, also possibly paranoid. He was right, though." "Yeah." Toby looked at the Camaro. "He was. So what now?" "I work. I finish this contract. I move on." "That's it?" Devon met his eyes. "What else is there?" "You could tell her. Show her what she walked away from." "Why?" "Because she should know." Devon shook his head. "She made her choice. I'm just letting her live with it." Toby studied him for a long moment. You need anything? Want me to move the jet closer? I can have it at Norwood in 2 hours. Devon almost smiled. Not yet, but soon, maybe. Toby left around 1. Devon worked until 8, then showered in the employee bathroom. Single stall, rust stains on the porcelain, water pressure that felt like punishment. He ate Chinese takeout cold from the container, sitting on the couch where he'd slept, where he'd keep sleeping until he figured out what came next. His phone buzzed. Victoria, can we talk? I think we should discuss the house and finances. He typed back, get a lawyer. Mine will contact yours. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. Across town, Victoria sat in the master bedroom of the Ashford estate, the bedroom they'd shared for 3 years, and stared at Devon's response. Carter was downstairs making drinks, talking to Diane about expansion strategies and market opportunities. She should have felt relieved. She should have felt free. Instead, she felt like she'd stepped off a cliff and forgotten to check if there was ground below. Her phone rang. Diane. Come downstairs. Carter brought the partnership contracts. We should review them together. Victoria went downstairs. The contracts were spread across the dining room table. 40 pages of legal language outlining production timelines, distribution agreements, profit-sharing structures. Carter walked her through each section, his finger tracing lines of text, his voice confident and clear. Diane sat across from them, reading glasses perched on her nose, nodding at key clauses. This is extraordinary. Diane looked at Victoria. Do you understand what this means? Ashford and Lane amenities in 20 Mansfield properties by next summer. Exclusive distribution. Your division could triple revenue in 18 months. Victoria tried to focus on the numbers, tried to feel the excitement she'd felt 3 weeks ago, when Carter first proposed the idea, but all she could think about was Devon's text. Get a lawyer. Cold. Definitive. Done. Victoria? Carter touched her hand. You okay? She pulled herself back. Yes, sorry, just processing. It's a lot. His smile was understanding. Take your time, but I'll need an answer by Monday. My legal team wants to file the paperwork before Q4. She nodded, signed where he indicated. Diane raised her wine glass. To new beginnings. They drank. Victoria's wine tasted like metal. The weekend passed. Devon worked. Disassembled the Camaro engine completely. Found the problem. Cracked piston, cylinder wall scoring, timing chain that had skipped 3 teeth before seizing. He ordered parts, started the rebuild, lost himself in the precision of measurement and assembly. Monday morning brought Rebecca Cole. She was 45, sharply dressed in a gray suit that looked expensive but not flashy, carrying a leather portfolio that had seen actual use. She specialized in divorce law for high net worth individuals, came highly recommended by Toby's attorney, and didn't smile when she shook Devon's hand. Mr. Cross, I've reviewed the preliminary information you sent. We need to discuss full disclosure. They sat in his office. She pulled out a legal pad, clicked her pen. The house is in both names. You contributed $420,000 to the down payment. She contributed $80,000. The mortgage is roughly $370,000 remaining. In a standard division, you'd be entitled to your initial contribution plus half the equity. Devon nodded. However, Rebecca's pen tapped the pad. You also transferred $65,500 to her over 6 months. Do you have documentation? He pulled out his phone, showed her the screenshots, bank transfers, text exchanges, dates and amounts. She scrolled through, her expression never changing. Did she sign any promissory notes? Any written agreement to repay? No. Did you characterize these as loans at the time? I thought we were married. I thought what was mine was ours. Rebecca set down the phone. That complicates things. Legally, these could be considered gifts, unless we can prove they were conditional on the marriage continuing. Recovery will be difficult. Devon leaned back. I don't want the money back. She looked up. Excuse me? I don't want to sue her for the money, I just want her to know I could. Rebecca's pen stopped moving. Mr. Cross, I'm not sure I understand your objective here. She left because she thought I was small, thought I was just a mechanic who couldn't give her the life she deserved. I want her to know exactly what she walked away from. But I don't want her money. I want her to live with the choice. Rebecca studied him. That's either very mature or very cold. It's honest. She made a note. All right, but I need full financial disclosure to properly represent you. Assets, income, investments, everything. Devon pulled a folder from his desk drawer. Inside, tax returns for the past 7 years, LLC formation documents, property deeds, brokerage statements. She opened it, started reading, and her eyebrows climbed with each page. You own 12 rental properties? 14. 2 more closed last month. Equity positions in 3 companies? 4. Aviation services, a tech startup, 2 commercial real estate ventures. She flipped to the final page, the summary statement. Her pen stopped moving entirely. $47 million, give or take. And your wife doesn't know? Ex-wife, and no. Rebecca closed the folder carefully. Mr. Cross, when this comes out in discovery, and it will come out, she's going to have a very strong reaction. I know. Her attorney will argue you hid assets, that you deceived her. I didn't hide anything, I just didn't advertise. The distinction may not matter in court. Devon stood, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot where his truck sat next to Torres's Honda. I'm not trying to hide it now, I just don't want her to get anything she didn't earn. What did she earn? Nothing. He turned back. She earned nothing. She borrowed everything and gave back contempt. Rebecca gathered the folder. I'll draw up the response to her petition. Full disclosure, fair division of marital assets, recovery of your down payment contribution. She'll see the numbers within 2 weeks. Good. She stood, extended her hand. Mr. Cross, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen a lot of wealthy men try to punish their ex-wives. This isn't that, is it? No. His handshake was firm. This is just consequences. She left. Devon went back to the Camaro. Across town, Victoria met with her attorney. A family friend Diane had recommended, someone who specialized in high net worth divorces and had a reputation for aggressive advocacy. His name was Philip Grantham, 62, silver hair, corner office in a building that charged rent by the syllable. The house is your primary concern? Philip folded his hands on his mahogany desk. Yes, I grew up there. It's mine. It's in both names. But it's my family home, my father's house. Philip made a note. Emotional attachment won't move a judge. What matters is equity. You contributed $80,000 to the down payment. He contributed $420,000. Unless we can demonstrate that his contribution was a gift or that you made significant improvements that increased the value, he'll be entitled to his share plus half the equity. Victoria's stomach tightened. He makes maybe $60,000 a year. How did he come up with $400,000? That's an excellent question. Philip's pen tapped. We'll request full financial disclosure, bank statements, tax returns, asset schedules. If he took loans, we need to know. If he liquidated investments, same thing. Discovery will reveal the source. And if he can't account for it, then we have grounds to argue the funds were improperly obtained, which could complicate his claim, but that's speculative. He closed his notepad. For now, assume he'll get his initial contribution back. That leaves you responsible for the remaining mortgage unless you can refinance in your name alone. I can refinance. Her voice was confident. My salary's $140 now, plus bonuses. The bank won't have an issue. Good. Then we file a response, request disclosure, and push for mediation. If we're lucky, this settles in 60 days. Victoria left the office feeling slightly better. 60 days, 2 months. She could handle 2 months. Her phone buzzed. Text from Carter. Dinner tonight? Celebration. The contracts are filed. She typed back. Yes, 7 p.m.? Perfect. I'll pick you up. She went home, stood in the kitchen where Devon used to make her coffee every morning before he left for the garage, and tried not to think about how quiet the house felt without him. 2 weeks passed. Devon worked. The Camaro engine went back together flawlessly. New pistons, honed cylinders, balanced crankshaft. He test-fired it on a Tuesday afternoon and the sound was perfect. Deep, smooth, powerful. Torres grinned from across the shop. Boss, that thing purrs. Devon shut it down, made notes on the work order. 16 more to go. You living here now? For now. Torres didn't push. He'd worked for Devon for 4 years, knew when to talk and when to wrench in silence. Thursday morning, the disclosure documents arrived. Rebecca called at 9. They're requesting everything: tax returns, bank statements, asset schedules, standard discovery. Send it all. Mr. Cross, once they see these numbers, send it all, he repeated. I'm done hiding. She paused. All right, but prepare yourself. This is going to detonate. He hung up, went back to work. Engine number 2, 1970 Chevelle. Blown head gasket, warped cylinder heads. He pulled the intake manifold, inspected the damage, ordered machine shop time to resurface the heads. Mechanical problems, mechanical solutions, mechanical. Friday afternoon, the documents went out. 500 pages of financial records, asset schedules, LLC formations, property deeds, brokerage statements. Everything Rebecca needed to paint a complete picture of Devon Cross, mechanic and silent millionaire. Monday morning, Victoria's phone rang at 8:15. Philip Grantham, and his voice had an edge she'd never heard before. We need to meet. Today. Now. She was in his office by 9. He had the disclosure documents spread across his conference table. 500 pages of Devon's financial life, annotated with sticky notes and highlighter marks. Your husband lied to you. Victoria's chest tightened. What? Or he didn't lie, but he certainly didn't tell the truth. Philip turned one of the brokerage statements toward her. Devon Cross owns $47 million in assets. The room tilted. That's not possible. He's a mechanic. He's a mechanic who owns 14 rental properties, a private jet, equity in 4 companies, a stock portfolio worth $12 million. Philip flipped through pages. He bought the jet in 2019 for $8.5 million. It's registered to an LLC he controls. He's been paying flight crew salaries for 6 years. Victoria couldn't breathe. He drives a pickup truck. A truck he bought used for $18,000. While living in a $700,000 house he paid for primarily in cash. Philip sat back. Ms. Ashford, did you have any indication your husband was wealthy? No. Her voice was barely a whisper. He worked in a garage. He wore Carhartt jackets. He ate takeout. Apparently, he also invested in real estate during the 2008 crash and built a portfolio most hedge fund managers would envy. Philip pulled another document. According to his tax returns, he's been earning between $2 and $4 million annually in passive income for the past 5 years, while you thought he made $60,000. Victoria stood, walked to the window, stared down at the Boston street 20 floors below. Cars moved like toys, people walked like ants. Her entire understanding of reality had just shifted 90 degrees. Why didn't he tell me? I don't know, but legally it changes everything. Philip's voice was all business now. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state. You're entitled to a fair share of marital assets. If he acquired these properties and investments during your marriage, you have a claim. I don't want his money. The words came out automatic, defensive. You may want to reconsider. We're talking about millions of dollars. She turned. I left him because I thought he couldn't give me the life I deserved. And now you're telling me he was secretly a multimillionaire the entire time? That appears to be the case. She sat down, her legs suddenly unreliable. This doesn't make sense. If he had this much money, why live like he did? Why drive that truck? Why work 70-hour weeks in a garage? Philip shrugged. Some people value authenticity over appearance. Or he was testing you. The words hit like a slap. Testing me? To see if you'd love him without the money. Apparently you didn't. She stood again, her face hot. That's not fair. Fair or not, it's the situation. Philip gathered the documents. I'll file an amended petition requesting equitable distribution of all marital assets. This will take longer than 60 days. Prepare for a fight. Victoria left the office, got in her car, sat in the parking garage for 20 minutes with her hands on the steering wheel. Her phone buzzed. Carter, dinner tomorrow? There's someone I want you to meet. Investor interested in the partnership. She didn't respond. She drove to the Ashford estate, walked inside, stood in the kitchen where Devon used to stand, and tried to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the man who owned a private jet. Her phone rang. Diane. Did you hear? Hear what? Philip called me. Devon's worth $47 million. $47 million, and he never said a word. Diane's voice carried equal parts shock and fury. How dare he deceive you like that? He didn't deceive me. He just didn't tell me. That's the same thing. Is it? Victoria's voice was sharper than she intended. Or did I never ask? Diane was quiet for a beat. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe I was so busy being embarrassed by what he did that I never bothered to learn who he was. He's a mechanic who lied by omission. He's a man who built an empire while I complained about his truck. Victoria, don't do this. Don't make him the victim here. He had options. He could have told you. He chose not to. That's manipulation. Victoria closed her eyes. I need to go. We should talk about... She hung up, sat on the couch, stared at the coffee table where Devon used to sketch engine modifications on napkins while she showed him marketing mood boards. Her phone buzzed again. Text from an unknown number. This is Tobias Reed, Devon's friend. We haven't met, but I thought you should know. He's not angry. He's just done. Whatever you're thinking of doing next, make sure it's what you actually want, not what your mother wants, not what looks good, what you want, because Devon's moving on, and he won't look back. She stared at the message for 5 minutes. Then she deleted it. But she couldn't delete the truth behind it. Wednesday brought more discovery. Rebecca sent over interrogatories. 47 questions Victoria's attorney needed to answer under oath. Questions about income, assets, contributions to the marriage, reasons for the separation. Question 32. Did you at any time request financial support from Devon Cross? If so, please itemize all amounts and purposes. Victoria sat with Philip in his office, going through the list. The money he gave me, that was marital support. We were married. What's mine was his, what's his was mine. Philip made a note, except he's characterizing it differently. He's calling them loans. He has documentation of every transfer, every text exchange, every request. I never signed anything. You didn't have to. The pattern establishes intent. You asked, he gave, you didn't repay. That's a loan structure, even without paperwork. Victoria's hands tightened on the armrests. So what? He wants me to pay him back? No. He wants you to know he could make you pay him back. But he's not pursuing it. Philip flipped a page, which is almost worse. It means he's not interested in the money, he's interested in making a point. What point? That you underestimated him. And now you're paying the price. She stood, paced to the window. This is insane. 2 months ago I was married. Now I'm in a legal battle with a man I thought I knew, who apparently I never knew at all. Welcome to divorce. She turned. I want to talk to him. I advise against it. Anything you say can be used in... I don't care. I need to hear it from him. I need to understand why. Philip sighed. If you insist, do it in writing. Email, text, something documented. Don't meet in person. Don't give his attorney ammunition. She left, sat in her car, typed a text to Devon. Can we talk? Not about lawyers or money, just talk. like we used to." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 hours passed. No response. 6 hours. Nothing. She went home. Carter was there, waiting on the front steps with Thai food and a bottle of wine. "Thought you might need company." She let him in because the alternative was sitting alone in a house that felt like a museum of her mistakes. They ate on the couch. He talked about the partnership, about investor interest, about expansion plans that would take the collaboration global within 3 years. She nodded, picked at her pad thai, said very little. "You seem distracted." Carter set down his fork. "I found out today that Devon's worth $47 million. Carter blinked. "The mechanic?" "Apparently the mechanic is also a real estate investor and business owner who's been quietly building a fortune for the past 15 years. And he never told you?" "Never." Carter leaned back, processing. That's insane. Why wouldn't he tell you?" "I don't know." Her voice was hollow. "Maybe he wanted to see if I'd love him without it." "Did you?" The question sat in the air between them, sharp and unavoidable. "I thought I did." She met his eyes. "But I left him because I thought he couldn't give me enough. And now I find out he could have given me everything. He just chose not to." Carter reached for her hand. "He manipulated you." "Did he? Or did I show him exactly who I was and he just took notes?" Carter pulled his hand back. "You're defending him." "I'm trying to understand him. He lied to you for 5 years. He let me believe a version of the truth I never questioned. There's a difference." Carter stood. "I should go." "Carter." "No, it's fine. You need time to process, I get it." He grabbed his jacket. "But Victoria, don't let guilt make you forget why you left. You left because you wanted more. That's not wrong, that's human." He left. She sat alone with the Thai food going cold and Devon's silence ringing louder than any words he could have sent. Her phone buzzed at 11 p.m. Text from Devon. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. I'm living with mine. You should do the same." She read it 17 times before she finally fell asleep. The weeks bled together. Discovery continued. Depositions were scheduled. Rebecca and Philip exchanged increasingly terse emails about asset division and timelines. Devon worked, finished the Vermont contract 2 weeks early, took on another restoration project, this time a 1968 Ford Mustang GT500 that needed everything rebuilt from the ground up. Victoria threw herself into the Carter partnership. Production timelines accelerated. The first Ashford and Lane amenities shipped to Mansfield properties in the Caribbean. Early reviews were positive. Revenue projections climbed. Diane was ecstatic. But at night, alone in the house, Victoria walked through rooms that still smelled faintly of the coffee Devon used to make, and wondered what she'd actually won. November arrived cold. Devon moved out of the garage and into a 2-bedroom apartment in Cambridge. Nothing fancy, just clean and quiet and his. He bought furniture from IKEA, assembled it himself, hung nothing on the walls. Toby came over with beer and pizza. "You settling in?" "Yeah. Heard Victoria's lawyer is pushing hard on asset division. Rebecca's handling it." Toby drank, studied him. "You doing okay?" Devon looked at him. "You know what's funny? I thought I'd be angry, thought I'd want revenge, but I'm just tired. Tired of caring what she thinks, tired of wondering if I did something wrong. I built something real. She wanted something shiny. That's not my failure, that's just incompatibility. That's very zen. That's just honest." Devon finished his beer. "I'm done fighting. She can have the house if she wants it that bad. I'll take my down payment and walk." "You're giving her a $700,000 property?" "I'm giving her the life she chose. Let's see how it fits." Toby shook his head. "You're either the most forgiving man I know or the coldest." "I'm neither. I'm just done." December came. The divorce mediation was scheduled for the 15th. Rebecca prepared Devon, walked him through what to expect, what to say, what not to say. He listened, nodded, didn't particularly care. The day arrived. They met at a mediator's office in downtown Boston. Neutral territory, conference room with a long table and uncomfortable chairs designed to encourage resolution. Victoria arrived first with Philip. Devon arrived 5 minutes later with Rebecca. They sat on opposite sides of the table, and for the first time in 3 months they were in the same room. Victoria looked thinner, tired. Her suit was expensive, her hair perfect, but her eyes had shadows that makeup couldn't quite hide. Devon looked the same. Jeans, button-down shirt, work boots. The only difference was the watch. A Rolex Submariner he'd bought himself in 2018, the first expensive thing he'd ever worn, and he'd worn it today deliberately. Victoria saw it. Her eyes caught on the stainless steel and ceramic, and something flickered across her face too fast to name. The mediator was a woman in her 60s, gray hair, glasses, voice designed to calm volatile situations. "We're here to discuss equitable division of marital assets. I've reviewed both disclosure packets. Mr. Cross, you're seeking return of your initial down payment contribution of $420,000 plus half the accrued equity in the marital home. Ms. Ashford, you're seeking to retain the property in full and requesting a portion of Mr. Cross's investment portfolio as marital assets. Is that correct?" Philip nodded. Rebecca nodded. Devon and Victoria stayed silent. "Let's start with the house." 2 hours of negotiation, appraisals, equity calculations, refinancing options. Victoria wanted to keep it. Devon didn't fight. Rebecca argued for full recovery of his contribution plus equity share, roughly $540,000 total. Philip countered that Victoria's improvements to the property, landscaping, kitchen renovation, interior design, had increased the value and should offset Devon's claim. Those improvements were cosmetic. Rebecca's voice was crisp. They didn't fundamentally increase market value. Mr. Cross is entitled to his initial investment plus appreciation. Ms. Ashford invested emotional labor. Philip's counter was weak and everyone knew it. She turned a house into a home. Devon spoke for the first time. "She can have it." Everyone looked at him. "What?" Rebecca turned. "She can have the house. I'll take my $420 back. She can keep the equity. I don't want it." Victoria's face went pale. "Devon, no." He looked at her directly. "You want the house? It's yours. Refinance, pay me back my down payment, and we're done." Philip jumped in. "That's very generous, but we'd still like to discuss the investment portfolio." "No." Devon's voice was flat. "I built that before we met. It's not marital property. You're not entitled to it. Some of those assets appreciated during the marriage. So did my garage. You want a cut of that too?" The mediator raised a hand. "Gentlemen, please, let's approach this systematically." 3 more hours, back and forth. Rebecca arguing for clean division, Philip fishing for any claim on Devon's wealth. The mediator splitting differences, proposing compromises, trying to find middle ground between positions that had no overlap. Finally, 4:30 in the afternoon, they had a framework. Victoria would refinance the house, pay Devon $420,000 within 90 days. All other assets remained separate. No spousal support, no claims on business interests, clean break. Rebecca pulled Devon aside. "You're giving up $250,000 in equity." "I know." "Why?" "Because I want this over, and I want her to live in that house and remember every day what she traded it for." They signed the preliminary agreement. Victoria's hand shook when she put pen to paper. Devon's didn't. They left separately. Devon walked to his truck, got in, sat for a minute before starting the engine. His phone buzzed. Text from Toby. "How'd it go?" He typed back. "It's done. You good?" "Yeah, I'm good." He drove back to Cambridge, to the apartment with the IKEA furniture and empty walls, and felt lighter than he had in months. Across town, Victoria sat in her car in the parking garage and cried for the first time since October. The refinancing took 63 days. Victoria worked with 3 different banks before one approved her application. Credit was excellent, income was strong, but taking on a $420,000 cash-out refinance on top of the existing mortgage pushed her debt-to-income ratio to the limit. The final approval came through on February 9th. She wired the money to Devon's account that afternoon and sat in the kitchen afterward, staring at the balance on her laptop screen. 2 mortgages. Monthly payment $3,800. Alone in a house worth $700,000 that suddenly felt like a prison she'd bought at market price. Her phone buzzed. Carter. Dinner tonight? Good news about the Dubai expansion. She typed back. Rain check. Tired. She'd been giving him rain checks for 6 weeks. He'd stopped pushing. Devon received the wire transfer notification at 4:17 p.m. while installing headers on the Mustang GT500. His phone chimed. He checked the banking app, saw the deposit, closed it. Rebecca had already taken her fee, $42,000 for 3 months of legal work. The remaining $378,000 sat in his account like a question he didn't need to answer. Torres rolled out from under a Tacoma, wiped his hands. You get the settlement? Yeah. You gonna buy something stupid? Boat, Corvette, trip to Vegas? Devon smiled. Probably just invest it. Boring. Torres grinned. You're the only guy I know who gets a 6-figure divorce payout and acts like it's a tax refund. Devon went back to the headers. Money was numbers on screens. The work was real. Metal and torque and the satisfaction of perfect fitment. His phone rang at 6. Toby. Saw the wire hit. You celebrating? Working. Come on, let me buy you a drink. 1 drink. You've been living like a monk for 4 months. Devon sighed. 1 drink. They met at a bar in Somerville. Dark wood, craft beer list, enough ambient noise that conversations stayed private. Toby ordered an IPA. Devon got a Guinness. They sat at the bar watching a Celtics game on the overhead TV neither of them cared about. How you feeling? Toby's voice was casual, but his eyes were serious. Fine. Liar. Devon drank. I'm not sad, I'm not angry, I'm just empty. Like I spent 5 years building something and then realized I was building alone the whole time. That's called grief. Maybe. You gonna date again? Get back out there? Devon laughed, dry. And tell them what? Hi, I'm Devon, I'm a mechanic, but actually I'm worth $50 million. Just don't tell anyone because I'm testing whether you love me for me. You could try honesty. I did try honesty. I was honest about who I was. Victoria was the one who couldn't see past what I wasn't. Toby finished his beer. You know the jet's just sitting there, right? Crews on salary, planes depreciating, you haven't flown anywhere in 6 months. I've been busy. You've been hiding. Devon turned. I'm not hiding. You're living in an empty apartment working 90-hour weeks, avoiding everyone. That's hiding. I'm processing. You're punishing yourself for her failure. Toby leaned forward. She made the choice, Devon, not you. She's the one who walked away from something real because it didn't photograph well. You don't owe her your pain. Devon stared at his beer. Then why does it still hurt? Because you're human. Because you loved her. Because grief doesn't care about logic. They drank in silence for a while. The Celtics game went to halftime. Someone played Brown-Eyed Girl on the jukebox. Toby ordered another round. You should take a trip. Toby's tone shifted, lighter now. Somewhere quiet, clear your head. I'll have the jet ready in 2 hours. Pick a destination. Devon considered it. Thought about mountains, ocean, somewhere without memories. Montana, Whitefish. Done. I'll call the crew. 2 hours later, Devon locked up the garage, threw a duffel bag together, jeans, flannel shirts, the copy of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance he'd been meaning to reread for 3 years, and drove to Hanscom Field. The Gulfstream G280 sat on the tarmac, white fuselage gleaming under sodium lights. Captain Sarah Mills stood at the base of the stairs, flight bag over her shoulder. Mr. Cross, good to see you again. Sarah, thanks for the short notice. That's what we're here for. She gestured up the stairs. Whitefish, Montana, 3-hour flight, weather's clear, we'll have you there by midnight local. He climbed aboard. The cabin smelled like leather and coffee. 8 seats configured in facing pairs. He chose a window seat buckled in. First Officer Ramirez appeared from the cockpit. Anything you need before we push back? I'm good. We'll be wheels up in 10. The engines spooled. The jet taxied. Devon looked out the window at the lights of Boston spreading in all directions. City he'd lived in for 15 years. City where he'd built his fortune and lost his marriage and learned that wealth without connection was just numbers in accounts that never got spent. The jet lifted. The city fell away. He closed his eyes and let the altitude do what time hadn't. They landed at Glacier Park International just before midnight. Devon rented a Jeep, drove 45 minutes north to Whitefish, checked into a cabin rental on the shore of Whitefish Lake. The place was small, 2 rooms, kitchenette, wood stove, and backed up to forest so thick the stars disappeared behind pine silhouettes. He spent the first day hiking, trails that climbed through snow still clinging to shadowed slopes, past frozen waterfalls and frozen streams up to ridgelines where the wind cut through his jacket and the view stretched to Canada. His legs burned. His lungs burned. The burn felt clean. The second day he drove to Big Mountain, rented cross-country skis, spent 6 hours moving through silence broken only by his breathing and the whisper of skis on powder. No phone signal, no emails, no notifications reminding him of depositions or settlement agreements or texts from Victoria he'd stopped reading weeks ago. The third day he did nothing, sat on the cabin porch with coffee and the Piercing book, and watched the lake freeze over in sheets of silver blue ice. A moose wandered past at noon close enough he could hear it breathing. It looked at him with dark eyes that held no judgment, then moved on. He thought about Victoria, not with anger, not with longing, just with the kind of detached curiosity you'd give to a photograph of someone you used to know. She'd wanted more. He'd given her exactly what she asked for, the freedom to choose someone who matched her image of success. She'd chosen. Now she had Carter and the partnership and the house and the monthly payment that came with it. He hoped it made her happy. He found he meant it. The fourth day brought snow. Thick flakes that fell straight down in the windless cold, muffling everything, turning the world into a black and white photograph. He built a fire in the wood stove, sat on the floor with his back against the couch, and finally let himself feel the full weight of what he'd lost. Not Victoria. He'd lost her months ago, maybe years before that. What he'd lost was the idea that love could survive economic disparity, that choosing simplicity over display was noble instead of naive, that you could test someone's character by hiding your resources and expect them to pass a test they didn't know they were taking. His grandfather had been wrong, not about people revealing themselves, that part was true, but wrong about the cruelty of the test. Devon had set up conditions where Victoria was guaranteed to fail, then blamed her for failing. He'd wanted her to love the mechanic, but he'd never given her the whole truth. How could she love someone she didn't know? The fire crackled. The snow fell. He sat with that realization until it stopped cutting. By the 5th day, the snow had stopped. The sky cleared to that brilliant blue that only comes after storms. He cross-country skied to a backcountry lake, sat on a fallen log, ate a sandwich he'd packed, and made a decision. He was done testing people, done hiding, done using wealth as a weapon or a shield or a secret. When he got back to Boston, he'd live differently, not ostentatious. He still liked the work, still preferred fixing engines to fixing spreadsheets, but honest. If someone asked what he did, he'd tell them. If someone wanted to know where the money came from, he'd explain. No more games, no more silence that felt like wisdom but was really just fear. He flew back on the 6th day. The jet climbed out of Montana and left the mountains behind like a promise he was ready to keep. Boston looked grayer than he remembered. The city had that late February exhaustion. Snow piled in dirty berms, ice crusting everything. People walking hunched against wind that had forgotten how to stop. Devon landed at Hanscom at 3 p.m., drove straight to the garage, found Torres and the new hire Marcus had recommended finishing up an oil change on a Silverado. "Boss is back," Torres grinned. "How was Montana? Quiet? Good quiet or bad quiet?" "Good." Devon dropped his duffel in the office. "Anything blow up while I was gone?" "Nah, slow week. Got 2 new restoration inquiries, though. Guy in Connecticut wants a 71 Camaro Z28 rebuilt, and some lawyer in Newton has a 67 Corvette that's been sitting in his garage for 20 years. Get their info. I'll call them tomorrow." He went home to Cambridge, unpacked, showered, stood in his apartment that still looked like a hotel room he'd forgotten to check out of. Bare walls, IKEA furniture, nothing that said a person lived here instead of just existed between work shifts. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "This is Cecilia Rivera. I live next door to the Ashford estate. I've known Victoria since she was a girl. I thought you should know, she's not doing well. She sits on that porch every evening staring at the driveway like she's waiting for someone who isn't coming. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because I think she finally understands what she lost. What you do with that information is your choice, but she's suffering." Devon stared at the message for 5 minutes. Then he deleted it. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. Victoria's suffering wasn't his to fix. He'd spent 5 years trying to be enough for her, and it hadn't worked. Her realization came too late and for the wrong reasons. She didn't miss him. She missed what he represented now that the truth was out. That wasn't love. That was regret. He blocked the number and went to bed. March came wet and cold. The Vermont contract finished. The Connecticut Camaro started. Devon hired a third mechanic, woman named Angela who'd worked at a BMW dealership for 8 years and wanted out of corporate service. She could diagnose electrical problems by sound alone, and Torres fell a little bit in love with her competence. The garage expanded. Devon signed a lease on the bay next door, knocked through the wall, doubled his workspace. He bought a 4-post lift, a tire machine, a brake lathe, invested $60,000 in equipment and didn't blink at the cost. One Tuesday afternoon, a Mercedes S-Class pulled into the lot. Carter Mansfield stepped out wearing a cashmere overcoat and an expression that tried for friendly but landed somewhere near patronizing. Devon was under a Tacoma replacing a transmission crossmember. He rolled out when he heard the shop door chime. Carter extended his hand. "Devon, I hope you don't mind me dropping by." Devon didn't take the hand, just stood, wiped grease on a rag, waited. Carter lowered his hand. "I wanted to talk, man to man." "About?" "Victoria." Devon's face stayed neutral. "We're divorced. There's nothing to talk about. She's struggling. That's not my problem." Carter's jaw tightened. "She made a mistake. She knows that now." "Good for her. You're just going to walk away? After 5 years?" Devon met his eyes. "I didn't walk away. She pushed me out. I just didn't fight to stay somewhere I wasn't wanted. She didn't know. She didn't ask." Devon's voice was calm, final. "She assumed. She measured me by my truck and my zip code and my suits, and she found me lacking. That's not my failure, Carter. That's hers. But now she knows the truth. Now she knows I'm rich and suddenly I'm worth a second look." Devon shook his head. "That's not love. That's reevaluation based on updated data. I'm not interested." Carter stepped closer, voice dropping. "You humiliated her. You let her think you were poor, let her leave you for someone she thought was better, then revealed you were wealthy all along. That's cruel." "I never lied. I just never corrected her assumptions." "That's the same thing." "No." Devon's eyes were hard now. "Lying is saying I'm broke when I'm not. What I did was live honestly and let her decide if that was enough. She decided it wasn't. End of story. She's in therapy now, trying to understand why she made that choice. I hope it helps her. Don't you care? Devon paused, thought about it, really thought. I cared for 5 years. I cared when she asked me to park my truck behind the garage. I cared when she stopped introducing me to her colleagues. I cared when she borrowed $65,000 and never said thank you. I cared when she left me for you. He looked at Carter. But caring doesn't mean accepting. She made her choice. I'm making mine. We're done. Carter's face went red. You're a cold son of a bitch. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just finished being someone's backup plan. Carter turned, got back in his Mercedes, drove away with tire squeal that left rubber on the asphalt. Devon went back to the Tacoma. Angela rolled out from under a Subaru. That was intense. That was nothing. He seemed pretty worked up. He's dating my ex-wife and feeling guilty about it. Not my circus, not my monkeys. She laughed. I like that. Can I steal it? It's all yours. April brought warmth and tourists and Toby showing up unannounced on a Saturday with coffee and an agenda. We need to talk about the jet. Devon was rebuilding a carburetor for the Newton Corvette. Tiny brass parts spread across his workbench like watchmaker's components. What about it? It's costing you $22,000 a month in crew salaries, hangar fees, insurance, and maintenance. You've flown it twice in 7 months. That's $250,000 in operating costs for maybe 6 hours of flight time. So either start using it or sell it. Devon set down the screwdriver he was holding. I'm not selling it. Then fly somewhere. Take a vacation. Visit a property. Do literally anything besides let it sit in a hangar depreciating. I went to Montana 3 months ago. Once. Toby leaned against the workbench. Look, I'm not trying to manage your money, but you're acting like a guy who's afraid to enjoy the things he's earned, and that's not who you are. Maybe it's who I became. Then become someone else. Someone who remembers that wealth is a tool, not a trophy or a test. Toby pulled out his phone, showed Devon a text chain. I've got a consulting job in Seattle next week. Come with me. Work remote for a few days. See the city. Clear your head. Devon looked at the carburetor parts, at the garage, at Torres and Angela working on their respective projects. He'd built this place from nothing, and it ran fine without him hovering every second. Okay, Toby blinked. Okay? Yeah, Seattle. Why not? They flew out Tuesday morning. The jet climbed over the Atlantic, banked west, traced a line across the continent. Devon sat in a window seat and watched America scroll beneath him. Forests, fields, mountains, rivers, the geometry of human settlement stamped across landscape that existed long before and would exist long after. The scale of it made his problems feel appropriately small. They landed at Boeing Field late afternoon. Toby had meetings Wednesday and Thursday. Devon rented a car, drove around the city, stopped at Pike Place Market and watched them throw fish, ate Dungeness crab at a waterfront restaurant, walked through the sculpture park along Elliott Bay, and thought about nothing in particular. Wednesday night, he got a text from Rebecca Cole. Victoria's attorney contacted me. She wants to meet with you, in person. Says it's important. He texted back. Why? Didn't specify, just asked if you'd be willing. I'm in Seattle. Do you want to meet when you're back? He stared at the message for a long time. The smart answer was no. The safe answer was no. The answer that protected him from reopening wounds that had just started to scar was no. He typed, if she wants to talk, she can call me herself, not through lawyers, not through Carter, herself. He didn't expect her to do it. Thursday morning, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Devon? Victoria's voice was quieter than he remembered. Smaller. Yeah. I'm sorry for calling. Rebecca said you wanted direct contact. What do you want, Victoria? Silence for 5 seconds. 10. He could hear her breathing. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I don't know. Her voice cracked slightly. Maybe that you forgive me. That you understand? I understand. You wanted someone who fit your mother's definition of success. You found him. You left me. That's not complicated. It's more complicated than that. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it's pretty straightforward. She was quiet again. Then, can we meet? When you're back? Just coffee. Just talk. Why? Because I need to explain. You don't owe me an explanation. We're divorced. You got the house. I got my down payment back. We're square. We're not square. Her voice was stronger now. I threw away 5 years because I was shallow and stupid and too busy listening to my mother to hear what you were actually saying. Which was that you loved me, that you chose simplicity because it was real, that you built something honest while I was chasing appearances. She took a shaky breath, and I missed it. I missed all of it. And now I have everything I thought I wanted, and it feels like nothing. Devon looked out the hotel window at Seattle's downtown gray sky, pressing down on glass towers. That's not my problem to solve. I know. I'm not asking you to solve it. I'm asking you to let me try to make it right. It can't be made right, Victoria. It's over. Please, one coffee, one conversation. He should have said no, should have hung up, blocked her number, moved on completely. But something in her voice, not hope, not manipulation, just raw regret, made him pause. One coffee, when I'm back. That's it. Thank you. He hung up, stared at his phone, wondered if he'd just made a mistake or taken a step towards something that looked like closure. He flew back to Boston on Friday. The jet touched down at Hanscom at 3 p.m. He drove home, showered, changed into jeans and a button-down that didn't smell like avgas. Texted Victoria. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Thinking Cup on Tremont. Don't bring your lawyer, don't bring Carter, just you. She replied immediately. I'll be there. Saturday arrived cold and bright. Devon walked to the coffee shop, got there 15 minutes early, ordered a black coffee, sat in the back corner where he could see the door. Victoria arrived at exactly 2. She wore jeans and a sweater. No suit, no heels, no armor. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired, young, like the woman he'd met 7 years ago at the auto show. She saw him, walked over, sat down across from him without ordering anything. Hi. Hi. They sat in silence for a moment. People moved around them, students with laptops, couples sharing pastries, a mother with 2 kids trying to negotiate hot chocolate temperatures, normal Saturday afternoon, normal lives. Thank you for meeting me. Victoria's hands were folded on the table. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either. Why did you? Honestly, I don't know. Curiosity, maybe? She nodded. I've been in therapy since February. Carter mentioned that. Her eyes widened. You talked to Carter? He came to the garage, wanted to defend your honor or something. He had no right. It's fine. I told him the same thing I'm telling you. We're done. What you do now is your business. She looked down. I'm not with Carter anymore. Devon's expression didn't change. Okay, doesn't that matter? Why would it? Because I left you for him. You left me because you thought I wasn't enough. Carter was just the excuse. If it wasn't him, it would have been someone else eventually. Her face crumpled slightly. That's not true, isn't it? His voice was gentle, not cruel. Victoria, you spent a year being embarrassed by my truck, by my clothes, by my work. You borrowed money you never paid back and never thanked me for. You stopped introducing me to your colleagues. You let your mother talk about me like I was hired help. He leaned forward slightly. Those aren't things that happen in a relationship that's working. Those are signs of fundamental incompatibility. But I didn't know. You didn't know I was rich, right? So what you're saying is if you'd known I had money, you wouldn't have been embarrassed? She opened her mouth, closed it. That's the problem, Victoria. Your feelings about me were tied to your perception of my financial status. That's not love. That's social calculation. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You measured my worth by external markers and found me lacking. The markers were wrong, but the measurement system was the problem all along. She was quiet for a long moment, then, "You're right." He blinked. "What?" "You're right. That's what my therapist keeps saying. I was raised to value appearance over substance, status over character. And I did exactly that with you." She looked up, eyes red but dry. "I loved you, Devon, I really did. But I loved the idea of you more. The idea of finding someone authentic, someone real. And then when that reality didn't photograph well at galas, I decided it wasn't enough." "So why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know it wasn't about you. It was about my damage. My mother's voice in my head saying I could do better. My insecurity about whether I belonged in her world or yours." She wiped her eyes. "You were enough. You were always enough. I just couldn't see it." Devon sat back, processing. This was what he'd wanted, wasn't it? Acknowledgement, understanding, validation that he hadn't been the problem. So why did it feel hollow? "I appreciate you saying that." His voice was measured. "But it doesn't change anything." "I know. We're still done." "I know that too." She tried to smile. "I'm not here to win you back. I'm here to apologize for wasting 5 years of your life." "You didn't waste them. I learned a lot. About what I want, what I won't tolerate, who I am when everything else is stripped away." "Did you learn anything good?" He considered. "I learned I'd rather be alone than be with someone who can't see me." She nodded slowly, stood. "Thank you for meeting me." "Victoria." She turned back. "I hope you figure out what you want, really want, not what your mother wants, not what looks good, what makes you happy." Something shifted in her face. "I think I had it, and I let it go. Then find it again, somewhere else." She left. He sat there for another 20 minutes, finishing coffee that had gone cold, watching people live their normal lives and feeling something that was almost peace. His phone buzzed. Text from Toby. "How'd it go?" "It went." "You okay?" "Yeah, I think I finally am." He walked home through Boston's Back Bay, past brownstones and cafes and couples walking dogs, and realized something fundamental had shifted. The weight he'd been carrying, the anger, the hurt, the question of whether he'd been enough, had lifted. Victoria had given him what he needed, not reconciliation, not another chance. Just confirmation that his instincts had been right, that the test his grandfather taught him had worked exactly as designed, and that walking away had been the only move that preserved his dignity. When he got home, he looked around his apartment and saw it differently. Not a temporary shelter, a starting point. He spent Sunday at IKEA, bought art prints and throw pillows and a plant he'd probably kill, but at least the intention was there. He hung the prints. Black and white photography, geometric abstracts, nothing revolutionary but better than blank walls. Put the pillows on the couch, set the plant by the window where it might get enough light to survive his neglect. Monday morning he called a real estate agent. Started looking at condos in Cambridge and Somerville. Places with character, exposed brick, big windows. Spaces that felt like homes instead of storage units for a person who spent all his time at work. The garage kept running. The Corvette restoration finished. Client from Newton showed up with his wife, saw the car gleaming in the bay, literally teared up. Angela had done the interior. Torres handled the suspension. Devon rebuilt the 427 V8 until it ran like it was 1967 all over again. The client wrote a check for $68,000 and drove away with his hand out the window, waving. "That's why we do this." Torres grinned. Not for the money, for that look on his face. Devon smiled. Both is good. May arrived with warmth that felt earned after the brutal winter. The city thawed. People emerged from hibernation. Devon bought a condo in Cambridge. 2-bedroom, top floor of a converted factory, floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick and ductwork, view of the Charles River if you stood in the right corner of the living room. He closed on a Wednesday, moved in that weekend with help from Toby and the garage crew. His first night there, he sat on the floor with a beer and takeout Chinese and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Content, not happy. Happiness was still abstract, still rebuilding, but content, satisfied with the space he occupied. Okay with being alone. His phone rang. Rebecca Cole. Mr. Cross, I wanted to let you know Victoria's refinancing went through successfully. The house is entirely in her name now. All paperwork is finalized. The divorce is officially complete. Thanks for letting me know. How are you doing? Good. Actually good. I'm glad. She paused. For what it's worth, you handled this with more grace than most of my clients. You could have made it ugly. You chose not to. Ugly doesn't fix anything. No, but it makes people feel like they won something. She was quiet for a beat. You're a rare one, Mr. Cross. I hope you find someone who sees that. He hung up, finished his beer, looked out at the city lights reflecting off the river. Somewhere across town, Victoria sat in the Ashford estate, looking at mortgage statements and partnership reports and wondering why everything she'd wanted tasted like ashes now that she had it. Devon didn't know that, didn't need to. He was done looking backward.